9000 or text the show on the Knippelmeyer Chevrolet text line at 405-651-3439.
Do it! Just do it!
Now, with Locked In, here's Parker Thune and Grayson Singleton.
Oh yeah, flip season is upon us. Parker Thune, Grayson Singleton here with you, talking OU Crootin for the next hour. 405-651-3439 is how you interact with the show on the Knippelmeyer Chevrolet text line. Flip season is upon us. Grayson, you ready to flip on the tape? You ready to watch some new tape? You ready to let me know what you think?
Let's do it.
In the last few hours, it has become apparent that Oklahoma is in line to land another defensive line target in the class of 2026. They hold a commitment from four-star defensive tackle Brian Harris out of Jacksonville, Florida. They are trending well for the commitment of three-star defensive tackle Teron Richardson out of Hopewell, Virginia, he announces on August 26th. But this morning, three-star defensive tackle Tank Carrington. I don't even know where he plays his high school ball these days. I think it's California somewhere. He's been all around. We'll talk about that in a second. But three-star defensive tackle Tank Carrington decommitted from Florida State. Shortly thereafter, the Godfather himself, Steve Wiltfong, dropped a good old Fong bomb in favor of the Sooners to pull off the flip. And I guess in technicality, it's not a flip given that he already decommitted, but for all intents and purposes, if something happens quickly, it amounts to a flip. But Steve likes Oklahoma for Tank Carrington. I will readily admit this was not on my radar going into the day. And based on how quickly this all has transpired, I have not really had the chance to do a ton of homework on it yet and confirm that this is real. I assume it is because Steve is almost always on the money with the stuff he reports. But you're going to have to let me know what you think of Tank Carrington, Grayson, because I'm kind of torn on him and have been for a while. Because this was a guy that Oklahoma was set to host for an official visit back in June, and they canceled it. Oklahoma canceled it.
Wait, okay, Oklahoma canceled it.
Yes. Oklahoma, at the time, decided, you know what, we're good, we're going to go a different direction. And Tank Carrington turned around, and he booked an official visit to Florida State, committed to Florida State. Here we are 2 months later. And he's backed off the pledge to Florida State, and it looks like Oklahoma is going to be the destination after all. And the thing with Tank Carrington is there are two areas of concern here. He is a good football player, and he has proven on tape and in elite camp settings that he can hold his own against some of the nation's best. But for one thing, Grayson, he is not very big.
No, he is not.
6'1", somewhere in the neighborhood of like 260 pounds, I think. So he's actually got more of a defensive end build than a defensive tackle build right now. But obviously defensive tackle is what he's going to end up being and what the vision for him is. But also, he's been at, what, 4 different high schools in 4 years? The high school he plays at this fall, I believe he's now at Crean Lutheran in Irvine, California.
Yeah, and it looks like he was at Bishop Gorman last year.
He was at Bishop Gorman last year. Before that, I can't recall whether he was first at St. Francis Academy up in Maryland and then moved down to Georgia for his sophomore year, or whether it was his freshman year he was at Georgia and then he moved up to Maryland. But, he's been around the block. He's been all over the place geographically.
Why?
I would be lying if I said I knew. I know his family has relocated on several occasions, which, well, duh. I mean, that explains why he's gone to high school in Maryland and Georgia and Nevada and now California, right? But I'm not sure why his family has relocated as frequently as they have. I don't think it's military or anything of that ilk. But he's been all over the place. The size is admittedly something that's going to turn some people off. He's a good football player, though.
He is.
I've seen him in person. Saw him at the Rivals 5-star last summer down in Jacksonville. Seen him at a couple other elite camps over the years. There's a lot to like with what he is as a football player. The question is, can he put on enough weight to be an impactful contributor at defensive tackle in the SEC? And once he does put on that weight, can he maintain the mobility and quickness that is required?
And I'm glad you segued to that, because that's what stands out on his tape, is his get-off and his mobility around guards in particular. So he is going to have to put on weight, and that is the question. That's what popped to mind. When you juxtapose him to somebody that the text line is going to be very familiar with, does he not remind you of Taj Overton in your assessment of him as a defensive tackle who ended up committed to Oklahoma State from the 918 area? And that's what I think about, because on tape, just on tape, he looks small. Like, you don't have to look. I didn't even look at his measurables. I just watched the tape, and I'm like, this dude looks kind of small. But he does have a freakish mobility that if you can put on weight and maintain it, that is going to be a problem for guards. Because guards usually are not the most mobile of the offensive linemen. Those are generally the tackles. So I see a lot of positional versatility potential here. And I see something that it's going to be a puzzle as to, can you keep what sets you apart and makes you great while also developing the body required to play SEC ball.
We'll see what happens here. I mean, again, obviously, if Steve Wiltfong is putting it out there that Oklahoma is trending well to land James Carrington, then it would stand to reason Oklahoma is going to be landing James Carrington here pretty soon.
Yeah.
And if nothing else, this certainly makes you feel better about Oklahoma's depth at defensive tackle in the 2026 class, which, look, I don't know that it had been talked about as much as wide receiver, but you're getting to the point where it felt like Oklahoma was going to need to reload at that position before too long, ideally in the 2026 class. And so if you're looking at a group that includes Brian Harris and T-Ron Richardson and James Carrington all in the same class, then hey, not bad. Not a bad haul for Todd Bates and company, if they can pull it off.
Not a bad haul at all. And I'm going to ask you this, too. Why do you think there is so much confidence that they are going to pull off this flip, given that he never actually OV'd and that Oklahoma was the one that canceled the OV?
He has visited.
Okay.
He has been on campus multiple times, I do believe. Just didn't take the OV. So he's familiar with campus, certainly familiar with Todd Bates. This is a relationship that Oklahoma has been building for a long, long time and maintaining for a long, long time. And they maintained it even after they canceled his OV. And so here we are in August, and this could be, for all intents and purposes, the first flip of the 26 cycle for Oklahoma. And you would imagine should set the tone for what could be a fall of fireworks as far as flips are concerned. Because this won't, like, if Oklahoma does pull it off with James Carrington, it won't be the last. Not going to be the last. In fact, I said it yesterday on OU Insider Live. I'll say it again. If you told me Oklahoma lands at least 3 flips in the 2026 cycle, I would buy that in a heartbeat. I think they're going to pull off at least 3 flips between now and signing day. Would this qualify? Depends on your definition. But I think there are at least 3 other prospects beyond James Carrington that are currently committed elsewhere that will wind up in Oklahoma's class come December. Eric the Red on the text line says, hey guys, just curious if you know / announced Jake Krell and IMG on YouTube tonight at 6. The channel is TFA_athletics. I was not aware of that. So he and IMG are on YouTube? In what capacity? Are they playing on YouTube? Are they scrimmaging on YouTube? Let me know, Eric the Red, because, yeah, I was not aware of that. Santa John says, let us not forget that Grayson Halton had to gain weight, too. That's correct. Mm-hmm. Grayson Halton signed with Oklahoma as a defensive end, and he played defensive end his freshman year at Oklahoma before sliding inside to defensive tackle as a sophomore, not unlike the path that Nigel Smith has taken. And so might it be the case that James Carrington is the guy you bring in without the expectation that he sees the field in year one? The thing is, hey, get here, put on 20, 30 pounds. Let's bulk you up. Let's get you ready. You can take a red shirt, and then year two, let's see what things are looking like. Like this, to me, feels like, and I don't want to write off a guy just because he's underweight. Not by any means. Because I remember watching R. Mason Thomas's tape when he was a senior and thinking, I don't care how much that guy weighs, he will play immediately when he gets to Oklahoma because he's just that good. Now, does James Carrington scream at me like that? Like this is a guy that's absolutely going to make a year one impact? I wouldn't go that far necessarily, but far be it from me to write off a guy's ability to contribute immediately just because he is underweight.
Let me ask you this, though, because I laid it out yesterday or the other day as it pertains to undersized edge rushers for Oklahoma. Do you think there is a chance that because he's underweight for a DT, and given his best attribute, I think, is the speed rush and his quickness, that they potentially can see him kicking out to defensive end?
Maybe. I don't know, like, if that's what you see him as, if that's what you think, like, if that's even a strong possibility, maybe not the plan, but if that's a strong possibility, I don't know why you would feel the need to take him right now with the defensive end class that you already have.
That's a fair point.
And with the knowledge that, Oklahoma's still in the mix for KJ Ford, the Florida commit, like they're going to play the long game there. And DeAnthony Lafayette, the 4-star LSU defensive end commit, has said that he is considering a visit to Oklahoma this fall as well. So Oklahoma hasn't closed the book on the defensive end class necessarily, even though they do have 3 verbal commits at the position. This feels to me like Oklahoma's taking a chance, Jim Nagy and company taking a chance on a guy that they feel like can add something at defensive tackle once they're able to put some weight on him.
Yeah, and I'm not going to say this dude is not strong, but I will tell you what's missing. I'm about 4 minutes into his tape, and there has only been one clip that I've seen where he actually out-muscles an offense. Okay, now I'm on the second one.
He is a wrestler, so he's got strength.
Oh, okay, there we go.
He is a wrestler.
And I'm not saying he's not strong, but his whole entire tape, this is what made me think of edge rusher, is because his entire tape was him navigating offensive linemen. Maybe that's how he broke down his highlight tape.
A 580 listener says, sounds like Grayson Halton when he was coming out of high school. Joe in Tulsa says he's the same size as Grayson Halton as a senior.
If we want to make Grayson Halton comparisons, I'm here for it.
A verified source says, dare I say Trent Wilson senior year weight? As I recall, Trent Wilson was quite a bit bulkier than James Carrington. So, again, he's a 3-star, right? And as we know with 3 stars, you're not going to please everybody when you take a 3-star. If and when Oklahoma gets the commitment from James Carrington, you're going to get plenty of folks, even plenty of Oklahoma fans in the comment section going, well, 3-star you. There we go. Another one. But the kid can play. He needs some work. They all do coming out of high school for the most part. You get an Adrian Peterson once every generation or so. But he'll need a little work. He'll need a little polishing. He'll need a little finesse. All things that he'll get at the University of Oklahoma.
And I will say, judging on the text line, I don't know if that's going to be the case. I don't know if the usual 3-star you narrative is going to be the case here, because I think the text line really likes this dude. And by the way, for those of you who don't, he's got a Georgia offer. So this isn't just Oklahoma going after this 3-star.
Yes, he does have a Georgia offer. He's got an Alabama offer. He's got some big-time offers. I will be completely transparent here. I don't know how many of those were committable this summer. I know LSU had him scheduled for an official visit. So LSU, at the very least, was still heavily in the market for Carrington, and he was committed to Florida State. So you got some big boys that were in the mix, and certainly Oklahoma was one. As far as Georgia and Alabama, I'm not sure what the level of interest by the end of the process was there. Brian and Bixby says 3 stars tend to work their butts off. Outlaw Devil says 3 stars might be a bit more hungry.
Yeah.
That would be the hope.
Yeah.
That would be the hope. I guess Brian Harris, too, depending on which service you follow, he could be considered a 3-star as well. This could be a whole 3-star front. Yeah. Could be a whole 3-star front for Oklahoma in 2025 between Harris and Richardson and also Tate Carrington, assuming he does wind up in Oklahoma's class. A 405 listener says, if he's a wrestler, sign him. Kelly Gregg was undersized and had a decent career. And that right there, right, like we talked yesterday about Brayden Allen, if you're going to take a gander, you're going to take a chance on a 3-star wide receiver, you can do a lot worse than taking a chance on a wide receiver from the state of Louisiana. Similarly, if you're going to take a chance on an undersized defensive lineman, you can do a whole heck of a lot worse than taking a chance on a wrestler who plays defensive line. Those guys tend to be all right. Maybe they're not going to be NFL superstars, but rarely are you going to get a wrestler that just comes in and occupies a space on the roster for 3 years before getting processed out of the program. All right, folks, 405-651-3439. The text line is hopping. Keep hitting us up. We'll talk more OU and Crootin on the other side. Keep it here on The Ref, the home of Sooner fans.
Hey, Sooner fans, this is Jaron Kanik, and you're listening to The Ref, the home of Sooner fans.
Every day, innocent families share the road with massive semi-trucks. The safety of everyone depends on trucking companies to hire careful drivers. But when trucking companies ignore red flags and hire dangerous drivers, the results can be deadly.
Reckless hiring practices put bad drivers on the road. Just last year, 5,700 large trucks were involved in a fatal crash. One bad hiring decision, one unsafe driver can change a life forever.
These tragedies are avoidable. Companies must be held accountable for reckless hiring practices that put all of us at risk. If you or a loved one has been affected, call McIntyre Law.
Where do Oklahoma sports fans go to watch the big game? Gridiron Sports Bar at River Spirit Casino Resort in Tulsa. With multiple viewing screens and a huge LED wall, you'll never miss a play. Enjoy bar-top gaming, Top Golf swing suites, delicious game day food and drinks, and a VIP lounge for top-tier players. Gridiron Sports Bar takes sports fans to another viewing level. Gridiron Sports Bar, Tulsa's fan favorite.
Beats and Bites Festival is back again at Riverwind Casino, where good grooves and great food are on tap all summer long. Join us September 5th for Gary Allen, along with crave-worthy eats from local food trucks. There's something for everyone. Get your tickets online or at the box office for just $10. Only at Riverwind Casino.
Say good morning with the Little Heats. El Huevo and Norman is serving Tex-Mex-inspired breakfast and brunch every day until 2. Tacos, huevos rancheros, spicy skillets, and more, plus a full bar to start your day bold.
El Huevo off of Tecumseh Road, where every morning feels like a fiesta. El Huevo, breakfast with a kick. Tune in every Friday to hear more about the Hal Smith Restaurant Group during The Rush and the Dari Noka Show here on The Ref.
This October, swing for something bigger than a trophy. Join the St. Jude Oklahoma Golf Classic at Quail Creek Golf and Country Club on October 20th. Presented by Bob Moore Infinity, every shot you take helps St. Jude Children's Research Hospital continue its mission, where families never receive a bill. Play with purpose. Save lives. Register or sponsor today at stjude.org/OK Golf Classic. Whether you're swinging a club or sponsoring a hole, you're making a difference. Sign up now at stjude.org/OK Golf Classic.
These days, finding heavy equipment you can trust feels impossible. But at M&S Construction's retirement auction on Purple Wave, it's all there. Over 60 pieces, hydrovac trucks, boring units, dump trucks, trenchers, and so much more, all selling with no reserve. The auction closes July 31st, so don't wait. Visit purplewave.com today to bid. That's purplewave.com, the M&S Construction's retirement auction.
Teddy Lehman.
I thought this was just one of the more fascinating things I've ever seen.
And Tyler McComas.
That, to me, that's unbelievable.
Telling it like it is, whether it's what you want to hear or not.
I think there's some truth to that, but I still think you're a total homer, but yeah, I think there is some truth to that.
Teddy Lehman and Tyler McComas. The Rush. Weekdays from 3 to 6 on the home of Sooner fans. The Ref Sports Radio Network.
At Susan G. Komen, we believe that ending breast cancer needs all of us working together. Because if you've just been diagnosed and don't know where to turn, we've got you. If you can't afford the treatment you need, we've got you. And if you are driven to honor the loved one you've just lost, we have a place for you here. Because of you, we're supporting those who need help today while tirelessly searching for tomorrow's cures. Visit Komen.org and be a part of our Susan G. Komen community today.
(405-651-3439) is the Knippelmeyer Chevrolet text line. Here on Locked In, Parker Thune alongside Grayson Singleton. The show brought to you by Dorsey Jones GMC out in El Reno. Family-owned and operated, half-price oil changes on Saturdays out there. And, of course, if you're in the market for a new vehicle, you won't find many trucks and or SUVs as reliable as the ones that GMC can provide for you. So let Dorsey Jones GMC in El Reno take care of you in your search for a new ride. Again, 405-651-3439 if you want to interact with us. Chonky Chuck on the text line says, as the season gets closer, the hopium increases dramatically, and I'm fully drinking the Kool-Aid. Sooner Mike says we will be okay if we win. The commits and flips will come. I'm ready. And Grayson, again, especially if you can get a guy like James Carrington on board before the season starts, a guy that was committed to another high-end P4 program with a recognizable brand. This means something nationally. This is something other recruits will take notice of. Maybe it doesn't shake the earth like, I don't know, Dylan Raiola flipping from Georgia to Nebraska a week before signing day a couple of years ago, but it's something that kids will take notice of. Oh, here's another kid that was committed somewhere else, but he's a believer in what Oklahoma's building. And it feels like there's a row of dominoes that's set up in front of the Sooners right now, and a major step towards getting some of those dominoes falling would be, to come back around to it, beating Michigan on September 6th. That is your first litmus test. That's one of the most conspicuous games on the non-conference slate across the entirety of college football. You beat a top 20 opponent on your home field in that game, especially with the reality that there will be several flip targets in the building for that game. Stuff's going to start to shake.
And look, I don't say this probably enough, and I don't say it because I don't like regurgitating what other hosts on the network say. But as Steely says, you are still Oklahoma. Like, this is the University of Oklahoma. And even I can, form my lips to say that. So, as an objective sports talk host. So, you are still Oklahoma. That name does still mean something. And all you have to do is get some belief that the program has been stabilized and is going in the right direction. Especially, this is easier, on the defensive side of the ball. Because of a defensive head coach who has proven over the course of 2 decades that he is the best, he is one of the best, if not the best, defensive mind in the country. So just win games. Your legacy will help you. Your logo will help you. And you'll be just fine.
Whenever we get to talking about how people seemingly have very modest opinions on this Oklahoma recruiting class, or they're underwhelmed by the direction that this program is headed. Fortunately, Auburn is right there to remind me that things could be a whole heck of a lot worse. We talked about Jackson Arnold earlier.
Is there something new out?
I don't know if you saw this. This broke a couple of days ago, but Hugh Freeze had to address it in his press conference today for obvious reasons. But did you see that Auburn basically has one offensive coordinator who calls plays on first and second down and another offensive coordinator that calls plays on third down, and then you have Hugh Freeze sitting in the backdrop there with the authority to overrule any of those calls that he wants to overrule? The old saying is, when you have 2 quarterbacks, you have none. What if you have 2, nay 3, offensive coordinators?
No wonder Jackson Arnold lives in his own head. I mean, okay. You remember last year when Oklahoma had some lapses where they were struggling to get in the defensive play calls in efficiently and on time? How the hell does this work? I mean, that's too many voices. And I heard Dari and Josh talking about this. I think it was earlier today or yesterday, and Josh said there's too many cooks in the kitchen. Like, that's too many people. There's no way that can go right. Why do you have two offensive coordinators that have the authority to call plays, and then you got somebody who can overrule them? That makes no sense to me. You're talking about a quarterback where you're trying to rebuild his confidence. That seems like the most counterintuitive way to do that.
Stillwater Sooner says, "Will Auburn tarmac Hugh Freeze after they lose in Norman?" If you made me bet who the first coach in the SEC that's fired this season is, I would probably bet on Hugh Freeze.
Yes, I would agree.
Because I think immediately some folks are going to hear that and they're going to say, well, what about Sam Pittman? You got to understand how the administration operates at Arkansas versus how they operate at Auburn.
Yeah.
Auburn is and has always been a pressure cooker.
That's a cutthroat operation there.
Yes, it is. And so Auburn will be a lot more willing to fire a coach midseason, even early in the season, if he and his team are not living up to expectations, than Arkansas will. Because I think Arkansas in general embraces Sam Pittman. I think they all understand they're going to have to shoot Old Yeller at some point, but they're reticent to do it because they like him. Because
That's exactly where I was going. Sam Pittman is a hell of a lot more likable than Hugh Freeze.
Arkansas would like for it to work out with Sam Pittman. It feels like, especially given that he's still employed in 2025 and wasn't fired midseason in 2024 or at the conclusion of the season, Arkansas is trying to give Sam Pittman, or is trying to compel Sam Pittman to give them a reason not to fire him.
Exactly.
Whereas it feels like Auburn is always looking for the first reason to fire a coach.
And again, likability matters. Do you think if the football team isn't very good, that Auburn fans and the Auburn administration would not relish the opportunity to rid themselves of Hugh Freeze? Especially with this nonsense that we're talking about.
You remember how they railroaded Brian Harsin, right?
Uh-huh.
And you know that with Hugh Freeze being the individual that he is and having the resume that he does, it's a lot easier to railroad a guy like Hugh Freeze if you really want. If you want him out of there,
100%.
You think they dispensed of Brian Harsin quickly? They'll do it 10 times faster with Hugh Freeze if they decide it's over.
They fired a dude that won an Natty.
2 years later.
2 years later, they fired a dude that won a Natty. You don't think they'll get your 7-6 you-know-what out of there? Oh, I dare you. And they've got a tough schedule, by the way, to start the season because they also have to play Baylor. So I dare you to start the season looking incompetent.
Chonky Chuck says, had a friend of mine say that Auburn is a guaranteed loss for us due to their defense being really good and their receivers being elite. He must have forgotten Hugh Freeze is the coach.
Their receivers are pretty good.
They got good receivers.
Their defense, good luck, DJ Durkin.
Do they have sufficient length and girth? That's what you got to wonder. With that operation.
Ginormous pause. Ginormous pause.
Reformed Homer says, my Arkansas Homer friend is convinced they're getting Lashley from SMU as next head coach. I would bet any amount of money he wants to bet that that's not happening. Why would you leave SMU for Arkansas right now?
I mean, okay, I will say that opinion does not just come out of the top of his head. There's a lot of people around the country that believe that Rhett Lashley is angling for the Arkansas job.
I just don't understand why.
I don't know why he would leave either, but it seems to be a pretty popular sentiment right now.
He's been rumored as one of those guys that you will be at the forefront of the Auburn coaching search if and when Freeze is relieved of duty as well. So, I mean, Lashley will be a hot commodity, but I don't know if there are many jobs in the country I'd leave SMU for right now.
I really wouldn't.
Boomer Rice, in y'all's opinions, what do y'all think about the whole evaluation strategy when it comes to recruiting and how Nagy and company want to do it? The way I see it is the schools that consistently get the 5 stars and top 4 stars are the schools that consistently compete for championships. We are Oklahoma. Go get the top dogs. What do you think, Grayson?
Oh, man.
I've talked a lot about this. I don't know if I've had you weigh in as much.
Okay, so I personally, look, I think I touched on this a little bit yesterday. When it comes to the top dogs, I do believe there are certain things that you should pay top dollar for. I gave you the example of that you and I are both pretty frugal people when it comes to money. But there are certain things in our lives that we are going to pay a little bit more money for. I do not spend a whole lot of money on clothes. I get a lot of my clothes from places where I don't have to spend a large chunk of money. I will spend large chunks of money for jewelry because I'm not going to wear fake jewelry. I will spend decent amount of money on shoes because I like Jordans. But the clothes that I wear are not going to be that expensive. And I think it matters what you value. And if there's a top target that you really value at a position, you should spend top dollar on. And to me, to the fan, and this is why I don't come down hard on the fans for this, to the fan, it does not seem like there's something there that they are going to spend top dollar for. They spent top dollar for Jake Krell. They're going to spend top dollar for Peyton Houston in the 2027 class. But you have to make that apparent to the fan base that, no, we're not going to outspend everybody for everything, but there is certain things we will, and we're going to try to do. And it just hasn't been made apparent to the fan base enough just yet.
I think it's time for the weekly Moneyball reference here. This only hits if you've read the book, not if you watch the movie, because this isn't in the movie. It's only in the book. But in the book, Michael Lewis, the author, outlines some of the principles and mantras that Billy Beane lives by as the general manager of the Oakland A's. And one of Billy Beane's mantras, and this is a direct quote, the day you say you have to do something, you're screwed because you're going to make a bad deal.
Yeah.
And so that, I think, has kind of undergirded the way that Oklahoma has approached the 2026 cycle, in the sense that at no point have they said, we have to have XYZ player, because there's just no replacement for him. Oklahoma isn't thinking along those lines. Like, there's a limit to everything. I think, and we talked about it earlier in the week with Peyton Houston. Like, yes, Oklahoma's willing to shell out a large amount of money to ensure that Peyton Houston comes to Oklahoma as the cornerstone of the 2027 recruiting class. But if somebody comes along and offers 50% more than Oklahoma's best offer for Peyton Houston, I don't think Jim Nagy is going to sit in that meeting room and say, pay him the additional money. We have to make this deal. Because, again, the day you say you have to make some deal, you're going to make a bad deal.
And this is where we come to the article from Ross Dellinger that we talked about earlier on at the end of the 1 o'clock hour. And media rights and apparel rights that some schools are signing now. Texas just signed one with Learfield, by the way, that can now be reallocated to athletes. That's where I think Oklahoma's got to get into that game, so that maybe you don't have to pay these dudes as much, I'll say out of pocket, just for simplicity's sake, but that you can present them with opportunities like that to brand yourself and get yourself out, and you're going to have money from those sorts of resources to be able to continue to be at the negotiating table with some of the schools that are just going to say, hey, do you want this much money? We got you. And the ones that are spending indiscriminately, like you put it.
This is a good point from a 405 listener. I feel like people think the difference between 3 stars and 5 stars is like going from a 92 Honda Accord to a 25 Lambo. I think that is the impression.
That's a very good way of putting
that. That is the impression that a lot of people have in their minds, but 3 stars are really good players too, and can become really good players at the collegiate level. For instance, look at some of the best players, some of the most ballyhooed players on Oklahoma's current roster. R. Mason Thomas was a 3-star. Cortland Guillory was a 3-star.
Was he really?
He was. John Mateer, 2-star.
Yeah.
Giovanni Gibson never had a star to his name. Deion Burks was a 3-star. He finally got his due at the end of the cycle, but for the longest time, Jaden Jackson was a 3-star. Kobe McKenzie was a 3-star. Kip Lewis, I do believe, was a 3-star as well. If he was a 4-star, he wasn't a very highly ranked 4-star.
A texter in the 580 says Justin Jefferson was a 2-star.
Santa John. What does Santa John have to say? I heard Jim Nagy say at the Night with Nagy, you have to be able to walk away. And that's maybe the most concise way to put it. You have to have a point at which you are willing to just say, okay, this does not make sense any longer. And we're not going to try and make it make sense. We're not going to force this when one of the crucial aspects of Nagy's entire philosophy from the jump, and he said this on multiple occasions, is that, hey, look, there are enough high school football players out there that if we are at all divided within the building on how we feel about a given guy, we'll just go find someone else. Because with how many guys are capable of playing high-level football that are graduating high school every single year, we don't need to settle for a guy that some of us like and some of us don't. We will find a guy that we all like.
This did slip my mind. Oklahoma did sign a media rights deal with Learfield. I get that merged Learfield with one Oklahoma, am I correct?
Mm-hmm.
Hopefully I'm presenting that correctly.
And, yeah, Oklahoma has had a partnership with Learfield for a
long time.
For a long time.
Do you think that along the lines of what the other media rights deals that other schools are signing, do you think that they're going to use that and, funnel the money down to have opportunities for the athletes?
I know that there are a few proverbial bowling pins in the air right now.
Okay.
On the Oklahoma end, by which they are trying to circumvent the rev share cap, much the way that you're seeing at Tennessee with the Adidas deal and how Ross Dellinger kind of laid it all out in his story for Yahoo Sports. But, yes, I know there are some gears moving in that direction at Oklahoma.
There you go, and that's a good thing.
405-651-3439. It's been a busy, busy afternoon on the Knippelmeyer Chevrolet text line. One final segment of Locked In on the other side. Keep it here on the Ref, the home of Sooner fans.
A true Sooner fan wouldn't be caught dead without the KREF app. Join the Army. Get the app. Tell your friends. This is the Ref, where diehard Sooner fans listen.
For 3 generations, the John M. Ireland and Son Funeral Home and Chapel in Morris continued to serve the community by giving back to local schools, charitable organizations, and first responders.
We provide pre-planning for funerals and cremation services at the most reasonable prices.
We are proud to be a family-owned and operated funeral home.
Award-winning funeral home year after year, our family believes in serving the people of our community.
I'm John Ireland.
And I'm Solon Daniels.
You've got our word on it.
Whether you're celebrating a special occasion, desire a great postgame, or after-work dining experience, the Ranch Steakhouse is the winning choice. At Ranch Steakhouse, we're grilling up the best USDA prime steaks in Oklahoma. Juicy, flavorful, and cooked to perfection. Pair that with an unbeatable atmosphere, a killer drink selection, and a wine list of over 400 personally curated bottles. Whether you're toasting the game or winding down after a big day, Ranch Steakhouse is where champions eat.
13. You might think that number is unlucky.
But lucky for you, there's KOCO5 First Alert Weather. Certified most accurate for the 13th year in a row.
It's not luck, it's a fact. And that's verified by WeatherRate,
an independent service that tracks every forecast every day.
We put accuracy in action, so you always know what to expect.
Because when it comes to your plans, you shouldn't have to rely on luck.
Trust KOCO5 First Alert Weather, Oklahoma City's most accurate forecast, now 13 years in a row.
Dangers rarely lie out in the open, so no matter where you live, it's important to know harmful pests can hide in and around your home.
Here I come!
Rodents and cockroaches are drawn to food waste and garbage.
I know you're out here.
Ticks lurk in tall grasses, and mosquitoes lay eggs in standing water.
I can hear you.
Rodents, ticks, and mosquitoes can all spread dangerous diseases.
I gotcha.
Seek the facts you need at pestworld.org. A public service message from the National Pest Management Association.
Hey y'all, I'm Blake Shelton. Being from Oklahoma, I know a thing or two about natural disasters. Tornadoes are common where I'm from and have affected my life and the lives of people I care about. No matter where you live, be aware of the dangers in your area and have a plan. You can create an emergency kit, come up with an evacuation plan, and know where to seek shelter. You never know when a disaster may hit. These simple steps can help save a life. This message is brought to you by the U.S. Air Force.
At Confidence Ford of Norman, we believe in living up to our name. Our commitment to confidence is in everything we do. Whether you're searching for the perfect vehicle from our extensive selection of new Ford models or pre-owned cars, our dedicated team will help you every step of the way. Because with us, you're family. We're conveniently located at 825 North Interstate Drive. Confidence Ford of Norman, a Cavender Auto family dealership where confidence is Cavender.
As we wonder why our kids are struggling, someone is getting bullied. As we discuss how to improve their mental health, someone is being harassed on social media. As we wonder why they're skipping school, someone is crying themselves to sleep. Knowing the signs is the best way to prevent bullying.
Please just leave me alone.
Learn the signs at sandyhookpromise.org.
My name is DeMar Hamlin. I play for the Buffalo Bills, and I play safety. CPR saved my life. I've teamed up with the American Heart Association as a national ambassador to help create a nation of lifesavers, turning bystanders into lifesavers through CPR education and access to AEDs. Nearly 3 out of 4 cardiac arrests that don't happen in hospitals happen in homes. Join me to ensure everyone has the chance to live longer, healthier lives. Visit heart.org/nation.
Right on back to the Knippelmeyer Chevrolet text line here, 405-651-3439, as we continue to work through all of your questions surrounding OU football recruiting as well as fall camp. A listener in Georgia says, "Hey, gents, wanted to see if you've heard anything about a couple guys that seem to be missing from every report. Zion Ragins, know he was thrown into the fire last year and has size issues. Is he part of the plans? Nigel Smith, working to put size on him, but is he ever going to make an impact in Norman?" On Zion Ragins, I'll be honest, I haven't heard much. And when you don't hear much on a guy, the conclusion that you naturally arrive at is, yeah, he's not in the plans a ton for the season that lies ahead. And I think that's understandable when you consider how much bigger Oklahoma got at wide receiver this offseason with the addition of some of their portal commodities. And the reality that Zion Ragins is still only 157 pounds, Grayson. I have no doubt that there will be a highly specialized situational role for a guy like Zion Ragins if you really need somebody in the formation who's going to be able to stretch the field, because he is one of the absolute fastest players on the entire roster. There's no question about that. But he's just kind of a fighter jet type of guy, you know? You bring him in the game to fly straight ahead. Straight downfield.
Yeah.
Clear outs. That type of stuff. Like, you want defenses, sure, if he's in the game, you know defenses are going to have to account for his speed and his ability to beat you over the top. But at least until he puts a little bit more weight on him, it's kind of a one-trick pony, unfortunately.
You know,
and that's going to limit him.
And a guy like that you can use as a decoy, too.
Yeah.
To open up the middle of the field for crossing routes and whatnot. But, I mean, Ben Arbuckle, this is where he comes into play, because if Seth Luttrell was still calling plays, I would feel a lot less confident in this. But Ben Arbuckle and the way he can be innovative and creative and whatnot, I'm pretty sure he can come up with something to where Zion Ragins is useful.
As far as Nigel Smith, man, he is the one guy that I feel like if he's ready to give you something, and I don't know if he will be, but if he is, if he's ready to give you something in 2025, it just makes the defensive tackle room that much more formidable. And he has gotten first-team reps at times in camp. So he's there in the rotation. Now, how much is he going to be in the rotation when Grayson Halton gets back? That's what's kind of interesting. Like, he's really a guy that has got to continue to build, continue to stack days while Halton is on the shelf, because the opportunities that have been available to him throughout camp probably won't be quite as abundant once Halton is back in the mix.
But how much has he taken advantage of those opportunities? How's he looked?
He's done pretty well. Like, he hasn't been dominant necessarily. It hasn't been a Cortland Guillory type of statement, but there have certainly been days when I've heard from folks walking off the practice field, hey, Nigel Smith had a pretty solid day. So he's done well. He's done relatively well with the opportunities that he's been presented with. He's somebody I'm going to be watching very closely early in the season because you would expect that particularly against Illinois State and Temple, a guy like that is going to see a lot of snaps. Those are the games where your fringe guys, I suppose you could call them, generally see a lot of action because you want to see how much you can trust them. And when I say fringe guys, here's what I don't mean. And you can kind of fill in the blanks by the omission here. I'm not talking about guys that are definitively in the rotation, obviously. You know what you're getting with those guys. They've proven it to you. And I'm not talking about guys that just aren't really concretely in the plans for 2025 anyway. And I think a lot of the true freshmen fall into this category. Like, yeah, you expect C.J. Nixon, for instance, or Marcus James to be a really good football player down the line. You're not really expecting to see much of them in 2025. So I'm not talking about those guys, nor am I talking about the guys that you know you can count on. The guys I'm talking about, Nigel Smith certainly fits this bill. Someone like Will Huggins, I would say, fits this bill as well. You might throw an Ivan Carrington into the mix, and he had a nice scrimmage last night. Guys that you figure, okay, they could play some role for us, but it's up to them to dictate with in-game opportunities how much of a role they're playing the remainder of the season. So Nigel Smith is somebody that I think over the first 3 games of the season in particular is going to be worth monitoring very closely. Because he could play a lot for Oklahoma in 2025. That's on the table. And obviously, if there is any injury whatsoever, no matter to whom it is in that defensive tackle room, if Jaden Jackson goes down, if Grayson Halton goes down, David Stone goes down, Dominic Williams goes down, it immediately creates a ton more opportunities for a guy like Nigel Smith.
Yeah, no question about it. Nigel Smith's job right now is to make the coaches comfortable in putting him out there in an emergency situation. And it seems so far that he has.
Chris from Knoxville asks, how's Manny Choice doing? He's had a couple good days here and there. I just really... And I figured there could be a role for him right from the jump, but between the two true freshmen, Elijah Thomas has had the stronger camp, no doubt. Had a really good night last night. And some of the veterans that you weren't really sure when they signed what they were going to provide for Oklahoma in 2025, a guy like Keontez Lewis, for instance. Keontez Lewis has really seized the bull by the horns. So too has Isaiah Satania. Jermichael Carter has come on strong. So in a world where one or more of those guys just proved to be little more than depth chart fodder, I think there was definitely a window of opportunity for Manny Choice to carve out a substantial role for this team in 2025. As it stands right now, I'm not really of the expectation that there's a ton of snaps doled out to him. And I think with the depth that it appears Oklahoma has in that receiver room, you'll be able to afford a redshirt Choice.
And that's more than okay.
Matt from Greenwood says, Ivan Carrington, red zone fade, touchdown Oklahoma. You all saw the video, right?
Mm-hmm.
Video of Ivan Carrington reeling in a one-handed catch. Man, he might be the quietest guy in that receiver room in the sense that, like, he's going to be right there in the mix for playing time. And he's been right there in the mix all offseason, but I don't know that he's been the headline grabber necessarily on the practice field at times like guys like Isaiah Satania and Elijah Thomas have been. But he's been stable. He's been consistent. He's gotten better. And he has some things that you just can't teach. One of which is the size and the wingspan. The catch radius, Kirk Herbstreit.
Yeah. I mean,
the catch radius, Ivan Carrington's got the biggest, no question.
Yeah, and look, this is where I keep talking about Arbuckle and why his addition is just so important. He'll be able to identify the situational opportunities where a guy like Ivan Carrington can really help you. And I think something like that, red zone opportunities, are going to be where those are.
Slim Brady sent us a text. And I don't necessarily want to validate this, but nor do I want to ignore it. He says, have a feeling Nagy will be shipping Ragins out in December. I mean, Jim Nagy comes from the NFL. As we know, and the NFL is a cutthroat world, and college football is increasingly becoming a cutthroat world, and Oklahoma brought Jim Nagy in as general manager with the expectation that he was going to make some hard decisions and be willing to make some hard decisions from a personnel standpoint. And so this is not exclusive to Zion Ragins, but really anybody, especially anybody that's not a freshman, that doesn't play much of a role for Oklahoma in 2025, they're going to be faced with the reality that they may be asked to leave at season's end. And so I think of a guy like Marcus Strong at defensive tackle, a guy like Jake Taylor at offensive tackle, somebody like Cade McIntyre at tight end. Again, I'm reaching into that fringe category, if you will, Grayson. Those are the guys that need to be big movers throughout the season, because if you're sitting third, fourth on the depth chart at your position and don't provide much in terms of on-field contributions in December, and you're not a freshman that the program is committed to working out some of the kinks with and polishing, they feel like you can take a big leap in the offseason to play a larger role the following year, man, like, yeah, you might be handed a one-way Greyhound bus ticket out of town.
That's the nature of the business. I mean, you got to. And the question is now, how many of those opportunities in game time are they going to get? And that's why you got to make those opportunities in early August.
Somebody in the 940 says, for grins and giggles, could we quickly review the practice struggles of JFA at Auburn and Hugh Freeze losing his cool on him, LOL?
Man, y'all are evil, man.
We talked about that in the 12 o'clock hour. Look, you don't wish misfortune upon anybody, and I hope that's the case for Oklahoma fans with Jackson Arnold, because I give that guy credit. Did he play bad football at times last year? Absolutely. But he also did not have to go back in the game against South Carolina.
Mm-hmm.
That was a guy that could have said, like when Brent Venables and Seth Luttrell came and found him on the bench and said, hey, you're going back in after the 3 straight turnovers from Michael Hawkins to open up that game. Jackson Arnold had already played 4 games in 2024. He could have said, nope, I'm saving my red shirt. Screw this. I'm getting out. We all know I'm getting out. I'm saving the year of eligibility. He could have done that, and he didn't.
For all intents and purposes, he did 2 things right. Number 1, he tried for Oklahoma.
Mm-hmm.
Number 2, he never blamed anybody but himself. And I think that's worth pointing out, is that he always fell on the sword.
Kyle from Salisaw says, Parker, you ran through how the offense looks good at all positions, but didn't say anything about tight end. I sent a couple texts regarding that in the first hour of the show, but you didn't speak on it. Should we be worried about that room still? I don't know that I would be worried, Kyle. It doesn't seem to me like there's one guy that has really emerged as the odds-on favorite to start at the position, but I think the flip side of that coin is that there are several guys in the room that have had a strong offseason to make me believe, based on the folks within the program that I've spoken with, that they're going to play a major role for this offense in 25. Jaron Kanak, Caden Helms, Carson Kent. To me, those are the 3 lead guys in that group. We'll see what you get out of Will Huggins. We'll see what you get out of Cade McIntyre, who's a guy I've been high on for a long, long time. I think he's a great athlete, and I wouldn't be opposed if he feels like at season's end that there's not an immediate enough path to substantial playing time for him at tight end. I think he would make a dang good linebacker, and he was in high school. And I wonder if that's something Oklahoma would be willing to explore with him. But he could factor into the picture this fall at tight end, certainly. But as I see it right now, the 3 guys that have inspired enough confidence amongst the coaching staff for me to confidently predict that they're going to be key pieces for Oklahoma at that spot are Caden Helms, Carson Kent, Jaron Kanak. Odds are you're only going to see one of those guys on the field at once in general. There will be some 2 tight end looks, certainly. But I think it's between those 3 as to who emerges as the lead dog in the group for Oklahoma. Man, what a day. Feels like we covered a lot of ground.
That was
with regard
to
to
good
camp
3 hours
and recruiting. Covered a lot of ground. We'll cover a lot more tomorrow. I'm going to be out there at Riverwind Casino off of I-35. Grayson Singleton will be back here in the Buffalo Wild Wings studios. Teddy Lehman and Tyler McComas take over next with The Rush. They'll carry you through the rest of the workday. We're done for the day, folks. We'll see you tomorrow.